Get started. Welcome, everybody. It's October 19th. Beautiful morning. Rained a little bit last night. I hope everybody got some good rain. So today, I had a couple quick questions from Miss Leslie Moroquin over the weekend. Just kind of asking about foreigners and how does that all work. And I figured it'd be a really, really good topic to talk about today because I don't think we've brushed on it. So there's two parts to the foreign investment side, or what they call investments, right? It's just really there's two parts. There's one who people want to invest, and then there's people that just want to live here, buy a house, whether it be a vacation home or whatever the case may be. They just want to live here. So there's two parts, right? So there's the buying side and then there's the selling side. So there's two rules that apply to either side, right? So you have a non-resident alien. They don't have a social. They're not maybe working or whatever the case may be, and but they want to buy a house, right? They're here. They're living here. Some of them are working here, but they don't have a social or they're not a full permanent resident, right? Um, so what do we do with those clients? I mean, are they just dead in the water? Can we help them? Can we not help them? What's going on? And I think that's a very, very important topic, because if you do run into somebody that is a non-resident alien or meets some certain requirements, that hey, maybe they can apply for a home and get themselves into a nice place here. So with foreign national buyers, I mean, the quick answer is always guide them to the lender, right? If we don't really know for sure, hey, they have their visa, they just need to renew it, or they have a work permit, or they have an I-10, or they have something basically stating that they're here legally, right? If they're here illegally and they don't have any documentation, they're working but they're only getting cash paid, that's going to be a little bit harder, and I would advise maybe not running them through the channels, because that may spark some other issues that maybe they don't necessarily want. However, if they do have something, if they've been here maybe like five years or so without any issues, they've gotten some sort of social security number or a green card, a visa, um, ID-10, something like that, basically allowing them to work or be in the States legally, then we most likely have a shot. One thing though is your smaller banks like Legacy Mutual, Gold Financial, Mortgage Solutions, these smaller mortgage specific banks really won't have these options for your foreign investments, because they are more risky. They're coming from out of country. They're looked at as more risky. So you need a bigger bank, whether it's your Chase Bank, your BBVA, your Wells Fargo's. I mean, as tough as they are sometimes to work with these banks because they are so big, they are typically the only ones that will help and work with your foreign buyers, because they're a larger conglomerate. They're able to do these things, package up these loans with these other loans for the secondary market. um, so it's just a little bit easier for them, and more likely that that's going to go through versus going through your smaller bank. So if you do need some contact information, if you do run into anybody that meets these requirements, let me know and we can get them taken care of at the right place. um, so first off, let's say my buyer's been working here, but they don't have a credit history. Not necessarily a bad thing. They are able to still qualify without a credit history. We just need to somehow create one, and whether that's talking to their previous landlords, hey, yes, they made their payments on time. Looking at any credit cards they may have, utility bills. Yes, they pay their utilities on time every month. And then kind of working that channel to find out, hey, how creditworthy are these guys? Just because they don't have one doesn't necessarily mean they're out for the count. They may also have an international credit report. So wherever they're coming from, whether it be Mexico, or any other part of the country, Canada, who knows, they'll see if they can pull an international report from their home country and kind of see what that looks like. And if that's credible enough, then hey, we can move you over here and get you into a home. A lot of the times, banks will require a little bit larger of a down payment. I think as high as 30% down. And then there's also banks that go as low as 15% down. And this is typically with conventional. Um, I found out as well that you can actually go FHA with some of these buyers. So if they're have their work visas and they've been renewed at least once, that's grounds enough for the FHA Bureau to be able to deem them as, okay, well, if they've been renewed one time, more than likely their visa is going to get renewed again and again and again. So we feel like it's a good enough qualification to keep lending. Or if they have a full green card and everything, they may qualify too. So ask for FHA if these people are qualified for it and if they're going there, because they very well might be able to. I don't know what I'm talking about. Very well may be able to. Just because they're foreign doesn't mean they don't get some of the privileges that we do here. So check with them, with the lenders, and see if they do qualify for FHA, because that's an amazing savings for some of these people. That they don't have to put down that 15% and they're able to get away with a normal 3.5. So ask the lenders about that. So for permanent resident aliens, works. Non-permanent resident aliens, you can also do the same thing. Make sure they have an I-10 or some sort of social visa, green card, just kind of something that makes them show that they're actually here legally and not illegally. Again, larger banks, very, very much the way to go, because the smaller ones just really can't have those options on lending. And then that's really much it. So really, don't turn that business away. Keep it in house. Let's just talk to a lender and see what we can do. Don't just say, "Oh, I don't. You're not a resident, so sorry." Always, always, always try and push for that business. If you don't really know, give me a call. Hey, Alan, what's going on here? We'll move them over and then we'll get them qualified. So on the back end, the second part of this whole thing, right? So once we get our foreign nationals into the house, what happens 2, 3 years, 4 years down the line when they want to sell? And that's a whole nother issue as well. So right now there's tons of people that have obviously bought that aren't permanent residences, and when they go to sell, they are deemed to a certain tax. So because they're not a resident, they don't typically pay normal taxes. So in the 1980s, the federal, what is it? The Foreign Investment in Real Estate Property Act basically deemed that foreign investors were pretty much taking advantage of tax-free sales, and that can no longer happen. So when people buy in and they're now wanting to sell, that they are entitled to a new tax. So think about that whenever you're purchasing with your buyers, and say, hey, whenever you do sell, if you're still considered a foreign investor, then you will be deemed to a certain tax. However, there are stipulations. So typically what the rule says is, if you are a foreign national, you're not a permanent resident, and you sell your house, you are automatically liable for a 15% tax on the gross sales price of your property. So if you sell your house, for quick math, $100,000, you're automatically getting taxed $15,000. So tack that on. So $300,000, $45,000, right? And so on and so forth. However, there are some exemptions, right? So if, let's say, the seller is a non-resident, he's part of the FIRPTA Act, it has to be subject to that sales tax. What will typically happen is, during closing, the buyer will be credited that amount of money, the 15,000 or the 15% will be credited to the buyer of that property, and it will be held into an escrow account until the taxes for the end of the year are due, right? So that's very typical. However, now there's this extra 15% that they're holding on to for the later on when the tax bill comes out later. So the exemption to that is if the buyer buying the house that the foreign investor is selling, and it is $300,000 or less, there is no tax. They're exempt. There's no 15% exemption, and the buyer has to be living in that house as their primary residence. It can't be the buyer buying it as another investment. And if that's the case, then the seller is going to still be subject to that 15%. So if you are representing a seller that is a part of that FIRPTA, make sure to ask the buyers, hey, is this going to be your primary resident, or is this another second home, a vacation home, something like that? Because if it's not their primary resident, your seller is more than likely going to be subject to that 15% tax. So definitely take a look at that. Terry, I know you're a bookkeeper and work closely with some CPA stuff. So this may be a little bit different from what you've heard. I'm not 100% sure. Have you kind of gone through any of this yourself, Terry?
No, to be honest, no, I never ran into that, but that's very interesting.
Okay, perfect. Well, then that's great news. So yeah, so $300,000 and under, the seller is exempt, but the buyer needs to be using it as their primary residence. So make sure to ask those buyers when selling a house that meets these qualifications. Okay, so secondly, another exemption is if the house is over $300,000 but under $1 million, the seller is only subject to a 10% tax versus the normal 15. So those are really the only two stipulations of why the FIRPTA would be exempt. So anything over that $300,000, they're getting 15% on top of their taxes for the end of the year. Or if it's over 300 but under a million, 10%. So relatively easy. Um, and this applies for the gross amount, right? There's no extra on top or whatever. It's whatever you sell contracted for, that's going to be the 15%. So really just keeping that in mind, and making sure that during your listing presentations, hey, you're asking, you don't want to be rude or anything, but hey, are you guys permanent residences? And then a quick yes or no is will suffice, right? If you're not a permanent resident, you will know. If you are a permanent resident, you're definitely going to know also. So just making sure that those questions have been asked, because it's a pretty hard kick in the head if you get down to the closing table and 15% of your gross sales price is gone, and then who are they going to be looking at? You as the realtor, right? So we want to make sure that we talk to them, talk to the sellers, talk to everybody, and make sure that everybody is part of the United States or who they say they are. Other than that, we some current events and some upcoming dates. We do have our agent mixer coming up on the 23rd. So be sure to keep your calendars checked. We will be, I don't know what is exactly for dinner just yet, but I'll think of something. I promise it'll be good. And then what else? Do you have anything?
No, I mean, my computer isn't turning on, so that's a current event. I'm taking it to get looked at today, so I'll do what I can for my phone, but I may be a little slower with some things that might require computer use. May just be borrowing Alan's until I can get mine fixed. So other than that, no, I hope to see everyone out at the mixer. Some new faces. I have RSVP'd from the last time, so we'll have some different agents out there. Start around 6 p.m., but come and go as you please. I'll send out another reminder this week, too, as we get a little closer to Friday. But other than that, nope, I'm good.
Okay, cool. Well, I hope you guys found this information useful. Please let me know if you have any other questions. But really just keep an eye on it. Ask the questions. Are you a legal resident? Are you permanent? Are you not permanent? And then from there, we can pretty much figure everything else out. You don't need to go too into specifics, but just making sure that we understand to ask those questions, whether we're buying or listing, or when we're accepting an offer for a listing that is a part of that FIRPTA regulation. So just keep that in mind, guys. Other than that, that's my quick tidbit for the week. If y'all have anything else and need anything at all, feel free to give us a call.
Great, appreciate it. I have a quick question.
Oh, yes, sir.
I don't know if this makes sense. What if there's a foreign person, they're not here legal? I mean, I never run across this, but a foreign person, they're not here legal, but they got a bunch of money in their pocket. Can they still buy house cash?
No, not really. I mean, the quick answer, I'm going to say no.
Okay.
That's going to lead to some legal trouble, especially if you tried to go through a title company. If you try to go through a title company, that's going to raise a red flag. First off, right? Where'd all this cash come from? This guy's here illegally. And that's going to raise some flags. Not to say that you could possibly do it on the side. I mean, go owner to owner, hire an attorney,
Oh, okay.
and the attorney can draft up some documents. But going the more traditional route, I'm going to say no on that part. Just because they have to trace everything. They have to find out where these funds are coming from. And if he's here illegally, then that's another red flag. So the way to go about that would be really to have to backdoor it. You'd have to backdoor it. You'd have to go directly to the sellers themselves. You probably couldn't use like the MLS, because that's going to dictate majority of the time going through title, going through this. So finding somebody that you're okay working with, maybe hiring an attorney to draft everything up legally, But then once that cash hits the seller's account and it's more than $10,000, that's not traceable. that's what's gonna have to kind of.
It gets messy.
It gets messy very
Wow.
fast, if that makes sense,
I can
Terry.
understand that. All right. Well, thank you very much. I'll see y'all Friday.
Sure.
All right.
Sounds
good.
great, Terry. Thank you so much.
Yes, sir. Bye. Thank you.
Bye.